I got something if nobody else is up for it
Okay.
yet.
All right. Yeah. All right.
So in a recent conversation, you guys ended with a rather enticing statement. You talked about how we're all the same, and it for me that really rang a bell because I've been thinking about separate realities as like we're separate for years, and now it's like, well, we're all the same. Like, no, we're not, but we are. Um, so I was like, it was a kind of a paradigm shift there. I was like, wait a minute, I need to. Anyway, I'd love, for me, if you're like, what do you want to talk about? That I'm up for that. I'm up
Yeah.
for anything else as well.
Yeah. Well, I think. Thank you, Hank. You know, that statement. By the way, there was a recording of Sydney Banks many years ago, and he said, and I have it right here in front of me, so I can just read it, so everyone will be brought up with what Hank is referring to. Uh, Sydney Banks said, this is a quote. These are several sentences of a quote by him. He said, "Beliefs are only a concept. The truth is a fact. Everybody's belief is true to them because it's their reality and because you have a free will and a free mind. This means to say that we fight with each other." I love this part. "This means to say that we fight with each other trying to prove our own individualized little truth. But the truth I'm talking about is beyond the truth of mankind's mind. It's from the original mind." And this is the part that Hank is referring to here, where everybody's truth is the same. And I like that phrase, where everybody's truth is the same, because it gives us, as regards to separate realities, for example, it allows us to see the paradigm of the principles, to see the truth of life uh, deeply as being beyond our personal separate realities, and see the depth and dimension of a true paradigm of principles that we now have. So it allows us to really think differently. And for me, when I heard that phrase, where everybody's truth is the same, it it did something for me, because it allowed me. I felt suddenly sort of. I think I listened better after that. I became a better um, a better connector, because I saw that beyond all of our individualized little realities, um, there was a logic, there was a truth, and I connected. It allowed me to connect with that, and allowed me to listen better, and to be more respectful, and to hear individual realities without getting with less of getting trapped in, well, that's wrong, or that's right, or I think differently, or how we think differently. I I lost my vigor, I think, for some of my vigor for um, arguing with, like he says, this means to say that we fight with each other trying to prove our own individualized little truth. That there is a bigger truth than that. And that's what we're about in the principles community, and that's what we're about in the three principles paradigm. We're about that truth, where everyone's truth is the same.
I loved whenever I first met Sid, and my first insight that I had was about is something that my ex-husband had done. I was very young, and I had really bad attitude about him. That he had treated me wrong. He was disrespectful. He was selfish. I had all these things that I thought about him. And if people would tell their sad stories, I would tell this sad story. And I didn't even realize it. But so on the way home from a talk that was said, I I was quiet for a very long time. And then Keith says, "Are you okay over there?" And I said, "Well, not very." And he said, "What have you got going on?" And I said, "Well, I'm so disappointed in myself." I said, "I thought I had better thinking than this." But I said, "I realize I'm sitting here thinking about something that my ex-husband did 10 years ago. I knew exactly when it had happened." And I said, "And I haven't changed at all in the way I think about it." I said, this is embarrassing to me for me." I said, I honestly thought I had better thinking going on than this." And I said, "I'm shocked to find myself here." And so then Keith says, may I ask you something?" And I said, "Sure." And he says, "Have you ever seen your thinking this deeply before?" And I said, "No, never." I said, "To tell you the truth, I didn't know I still thought about this at all, even though I talk about it." So I said, "It's been invisible to me." And I realized as I talk about it, it's repetitive. It's a repetitive memory for me. And I thought, go figure. I mean, where have I been? That all this is going on. It's in my thinking, and I don't even know it. So then I wondered. I said, I've never thought about this in a different way at all. And I thought, do I know a different way to think about this? And it was like, no, nothing comes to mind. And I thought, well, once again, pretty darn disappointed in myself. And so then I thought, well, maybe because we'd just been with Sid, I think, and he was so inspirational. And I thought, well, stuff has come to Sydney Banks. I'm not expecting that to happen to me. But if it does, I'd be fine. But I don't think that's what's going to happen for me. But things come to him. And I thought maybe some new thinking could come to me about this. You never know. So I, with hope, I let go of it. I didn't know there wasn't anything else. Nothing else came to mind for me to think about it. So we talked about something else. And 3 days later, the word compassion came to me, and it just kept being there, being there, being there. And a few times I thought, I hope this doesn't have anything to do with that thing I was thinking about John. Because I'm not going to go that far, and all the way to compassion. I don't think so. And so it just kept being there. And finally I thought, okay, I'll try it on. How could it possibly be compassion? And I softened on it a little bit. I was willing to take a bigger chance on it or something. And then this sentence came to mind. This stuff was just reflective thinking. This wasn't me analytically bearing down, trying to figure things out at all. It was just being quiet and then having a new thing pop in my mind. And it was the guy made a mistake. And I thought, oh, I make mistakes. And then the coolest thing happened. Sid would talk about this. I didn't quite know what he meant, but he said that things could generalize out when you were dealing with truth. He would call the three principles truth. And it generalized out. It's like, oh, everybody makes mistakes. Oh, as a person, in the human condition, we're all born making mistakes, and we're all going to die making mistakes. This is a pretty normal part of life here. And what's up with me and the attitude towards my ex-husband? I make mistakes too. And I thought, well, what kind of a hypocrite am I that I'm going to judge his for him? Did I say that right? Judge his for him,
Yeah.
him for his, and not judge, not be honest about my own. And so it was so, I thought, oh, we are all in the same boat here. We all are going to make mistakes, and we're all going to have to find a way to deal with it. With the, sometimes you need to apologize. Sometimes you need to learn to do things a different way. They're just all such sorts of possibilities. And I thought, this is true for everyone who has ever lived and everyone who's ever going to live, and all of us who are alive right now. And I thought, I think this is generalizing. And I thought, wow, what a way to learn. It just, man, this could have taken me years and years and years and years. And it was happening all at once. And I thought, wow, this truth stuff, it generalizes out to everyone. And I just keep coming to places in my life where I have insights about something I've had wrong. And what it always comes down to is, oh, this is how we're all alike. This is that deeper truth about life where we're all the same. And I just have such compassion for people that they make mistakes just like me. It gives you a more generous soul or something, knowing that, you can't just be pointing fingers at everybody else. And you do the same thing too. So I love that this knowledge generalizes. You can learn tremendous amounts through insightful knowledge. And Sid was always talking about it, and I loved the things he said about it. I didn't understand a lot of them. I thought, I wonder what he means by that. But then I would have experiences from time to time where I would have an experience of what he meant. I thought, oh, this is that thing he talked about. Yeah. So on one level, or sort of, maybe I can say personally, we are all in separate realities, because which is a good thing to know. Boy, I think in knowing that, you learn a lot about yourself on a daily basis. It's like, oh, I think like this, and these are the conclusions I come to. And he thinks like that, and those are the conclusions he comes to. But in the same breath, I know that there's this deeper spiritual reality where we're all the same. And the three principles is a place where we're all the same. And I thought, oh, I didn't really know that existed. And I think that is it on the dollar bill or in the Constitution or something, that all men are created equal? And I used to think, I'm not so sure about that. Am I on board with that? I don't know. But I totally felt like all men are created equal. And I thought, oh, everybody has this possibility of having insights about life that take you from where you were to someplace else. And there's an evolution involved with it that isn't predictable to you, and isn't good for you. Pat yourself on the back. It's not that kind of thing. You could be grateful for it. That you get to go beyond some of your bad thinking that you didn't even know you had. Now that's an option. And you start to respect insightful thinking, and you see how big it is, or how much power it's got. And you start to want to do more of that than the smaller personal analytical thinking. just because it's so much cooler. I mean, when you can learn that much at once, how do you turn your back on that? But the three principles just continues to me, it's like it keeps folding in on itself, and you just keep learning more and more and more because it's constantly true. And so it's always backing itself up, which is very nice. And then you're able to learn some more that you didn't know you needed to know or that you were going to ever learn.
But first, I'm going to ask the first thing, because this has been a burning question for a long time. People allude to, in the principles, how we are not our bodies. We are our spirit, I guess is what they presume to mean by that. So you were near Sid, near his death, I assume. I think you were. Did he, no, I've never seen anything written or talked about with what he thought happened after death. And I'd like to know if you do. And then the other thing was about different realities. I had a terrible relationship with my mother, and I hated her for so long, and she died years ago, and Mother's Day always brings that up. But about 2 weeks ago, I found an old letter from her, and I was reading it, and it was so full of love. And she's talked about how there's three, she didn't say realities, but 3 points of view: yours, mine, and the middle. And I'm like, oh my God. I was in a place where I could see that at the time. But when I read it, I went, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
yeah. Yeah. And anyway, so with what you're talking about, I wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah.
So what about the afterlife, or whatever you want to call it? What's going on with that?
Let me go on with this other one first. It's
Oh,
when
sure.
we were about, what, 22 years old when we met, or somewhere in there.
Mhm.
And his parents lived in Indiana. We were both living in Texas. And he would talk about his folks, but boy, he was not complimentary about his mom and dad. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have to meet them one of these days. I was not looking forward to that. And so then here it came, I think we were going to go to Indiana for a visit, and I did meet them. And I thought, well, golly, I like them. I think they're an awful lot like my parents, to tell you the truth. I don't see what he doesn't like about them. I don't get it. And so he had gotten a lot of attitude about him while he was in graduate school. And they're just they were the nicest people. They were so nice. He was an only child. They loved him so much. They supported him so much. They went to all the games. They helped him. His father saved up, matched his money that he made on his own so that he didn't have money to go to college. He didn't have to do that, They're just very dear people. And Keith's whole attitude about them changed. And which I'm thrilled, because he didn't have to think they were ogres for the rest of his life.
When I went to graduate school in psychology, the idea in psychology was to find in your past and blame, really to blame, to attribute what was wrong with you as regards to the way you were raised, or the way you were taught, or the way you were treated, or so there were circumstances, and there was your past, and that was causative to you now. And so there was a tracing back and attributing to, and it got worse and worse and worse the more I went to graduate school. So the first year was sort of like, well, okay, I could see, but by the time the fourth year was there, I was really sold on the conviction and on the unprincipled psychology that I was being taught, was that there were causes in everyone's past and everyone's circumstances that had power to determine your viewpoint and your experience. And you needed to kind of unpack that or transcend that. And Sydney Banks changed all that. He said
Right.
that, you know, your past and circumstances have nothing to do with your present. In fact, in your original mind, your original consciousness and original thought. And that was what he kept talking about. And he obliterated my pain and suffering. And I fell back in love with my parents.
Oh,
I accepted them. I didn't really judge them or think ill of them any longer. And I found, surprisingly, that I actually had a happy childhood. I didn't know that I had, but I changed. When I changed, my past changed, my viewpoint changed, my feeling changed, my experience changed, my past changed, and I now have a happy past. But how do you account for that? But in terms of Sydney Banks too, he went back to Scotland in his later years, and he was absolutely amazed at how beautiful the Scotland was, how wonderful the music was, how he said we played in an old. As a child, I played in an old castle. We had games, we played, and we tumbled over these old ruins. This castle ruins was our playground.
mhm.
And he couldn't believe his whole resentment, his poor me, his sense of neglect that he suffered, the abuse that he suffered, the negativity of his parents, and the condemnation, you know, the limitations that they sold him on, that he had to go to work when he was 13 and quit school, all these resentments and ill feelings that he had carried his whole life as what he would later call excuses, became insignificant. It didn't mean that he lost his ill feeling toward his parents, and he too found what you're mentioning as well, Carolyn. You know, he found something new,
Mm.
and a new feeling and a new reality, a separate reality from his past, unprincipled reality. When he saw the principled nature of reality that everyone actually already lives in, it was the nowness of that changed him, and he was forever grateful for that.
Yeah. And I look back at all the mistakes I made as a parent, you know, and
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well,
what about the
sometimes
afterlife?
that happens in life. You know, when you have children, a lot of times you realize, oh my goodness,
My mother was right.
yeah, you know, you start to get, you have, it sort of forces you to,
Yeah.
it can force you to really admit that you make mistakes too.
And we all did the best we could
Yeah,
at the time.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I had some sort of an epiphany when I think I was about 16. I was either going to have to leave home or learn how to get along with my mom. And I think the learn how to get along with my mom won out, which was good. And I just completely forgave her for anything that I had ever had against her. And we had we had so much fun together.
Oh,
And I could see her doing her and running her number, you know, and I thought, oh, look, there she goes, you know, and I didn't have any judgment about it.
wow.
And I didn't let her boss me around like she would have liked to have done and had been able to somewhat do before. And I would just say, now, Mom, that's not going to work for me. You know, just had all the patience in the world. And my Lord, we had a good time. And she also asked the thing about death, about sin and death.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a lot to say about that too.
I don't know that it's recorded anywhere necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't think about it. Do you think about it
I
being?
think it probably is in pieces, but he said because, you know, for example, he said consciousness is soul. It's one of the principles. The principle of consciousness is soul, and your soul never dies. So the true identity of you is not just your name or your physical experiences and circumstances that you've been in, but the true identity of that is a divine identity is eternal. And you said and he wasn't. Someone asked him once, as I recall, about reincarnation, and he said, "Oh, of course. You know, like where are you going to go?" That's how he put it. Was where are you going to go? And it kind of struck everyone in the audience rather absurd that we think of ourselves as mortal. You know, mortal in the sense of this lifetime and my identity. And he said when he had this experience that he died, that he went completely through the experience of death, and he knew that there was nothing to fear about death, nothing, absolutely nothing. And that's the way he lived right until his dying breath. He had no fear, no sense of a mortality that so many of us would think of. He felt very. He was looking forward to his next experience, and he taught us a lot about that. You know, those of us that could see it was like, my goodness, what a man! How do you know such a person? You know, like it was really different. But he exhibited it. He wasn't trying to teach it, but you could just see it. You know, it was his truth.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
It just happened that Sid was visiting me when my father died. He died suddenly, dropped dead. And, you know, I was shocked. And Sid took me aside. I'll never forget this. This is like, I don't know, 30 years ago. He said, you know, nobody dies. You can't die. You can't go. There's no place to go. And I'll never forget that. It just settled me right down. Because there's no place to go. And so I remember going to my father's funeral, and those words kept ringing in my ears. Nobody dies. There's no place to go. And I remember seeing him for the first time in the casket, and I thought, I was so relieved when I saw his casket, because he did not look like he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, no problem. He's not there in the casket.
Yeah.
He's in another piece somewhere else. And I was forever grateful for that moment with Sid.
That's great. Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you so much.
I remember Sid one time, he said, oh, look, he says, when you die, you're going to be laughing your head off at the things you used to think. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. You know, I like the sound of that.
Oh, I used to think that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, I used to think that. You can imagine there must be a lot of laughter in heaven, you know, where you would all share some hilarities over how small-minded you used to be, you know, or what you had wrong, and you like there's a great cartoon I saw once where St. Peter's at the pearly gates, and he's welcoming everybody in, and this one guy is hanging back, you know, he's like, you know, and he says, come on in, you know, and the guy says, well, I don't know, you know, I don't know what kind of deal this is, and what about this and what about that. And St. Peter looks at the man and says, my goodness, you must have worried yourself to death. Come on in, you know, and you know, so we could all laugh at how what we missed.
I was about 25 when my dad died, and I just had never thought about death hardly at all. I was an immature 25, and he died, and then it was a surprise to me that whatever connection there was between the two of us got stronger. I thought, you're kidding me. I thought, you know, people would say, oh, death, that's the end. And I thought, oh, no, this is the end. And I thought, I don't know, it's not feeling very much like the end. And it's like any of the stuff he disapproved of about me when he was alive, that was gone and out of the relationship. And anything I disapproved about him, that was gone and out of the relationship. And I thought, oh, I feel so much closer to my dad. And I thought, this is the end. There's no the end. And so I thought, oh, this is great. This is wonderful. And I thought, I'll get to love him till I die, if there's such a thing as that, even, you know. I don't have to quit loving my father.
We have a friend of ours who, when Sydney Banks passed away, she called us and said, oh my God, like, I've gone sky high about Sid. Like, she said, I can't believe it. I don't have any grief. I feel like I'm thrilled. I'm elated. I can't believe it, that the way I feel about it. It's just completely new. I don't miss him. I'm not afraid. You know, she said, I'm so surprised about my experience of losing Sid, that she didn't really lose anything at all. In fact, she gained an enormous amount.
Mm-hmm. He said lots of other things about death. They were all favorable.
Yeah.
And they all made it sound like a not thing to be afraid of.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, oh yeah, it'll, you know, I don't know. I was fortunate. My mother had no fear about death, so I was raised in a very good atmosphere about that. And then to meet him and have him be as relaxed about it as she was and unafraid as she was, I thought, oh, okay. And I experienced my father's death and realized, hey, there's no the end. So it's nice to have somebody be willing to speak up about their good feelings about death.
Yeah, it really was. It was quite a difference because most everyone, as you all know, but most everyone has such different feelings about it. But don't forget, he said, I'm just reminded of one thing he said once, that he said after his enlightenment, there were a group of people standing around, and somebody said, "Well, what is life anyway?" And he said, and I said, "Well, life is a divine dream, suspended within the boundaries of time, space, and matter." But, and so, and then he said to me, he said, "Where did that come from?" He said, "I've never heard that before. I never knew that, but I knew that was true. It was a divine dream." And so, as such, that, and the principles attest to that, in my view, because they're spiritual, and they have a universal thing about them. They're in science, psychology's never had principles, and in science, a principle has to have three criteria. It has to be a constant, never vary. It has to, there can be no exceptions to it. So it's not in time. It's a constant, like gravity is a constant. Gravity is not in time. It's beyond time. For example, it's a physical principle. These spiritual principles are not time-based. They're not life. They don't die. They don't die with the body. It's not in the body that the principles live or reside or are true. They're not. There's no exceptions. There's no anomalies. There's no. Einstein always said that he was searching for truths that were not, where there were no exceptions. So as he was doing his research, if he ever saw an exception, he knew he wasn't at a principled level. He was dealing with something that was temporary or was not, there were anomalies. He bore down on all anomalies. Every time he could find an anomaly, he knew he didn't know science yet. Science would have no logic to it. He knew it would have a logic to it. And third, the principles have is.
Brett's talking to you.
I have a couple of people wanting to ask some questions, and Nikki wants to say something as well.
Well, let me finish
Okay.
my other thought is that it's predictive. So a principle is a constant. There's no anomalies or exceptions. It's predictive. So once you know how something always works, it's comforting, and you can see how it's playing out, and you can really fathom it and appreciate it. So what's the question?
Hey there.
Hi, Nikki.
Hey guys. I just have something to share and see if you guys have something to say. So this topic, I guess I've seen that in an experience I had with somebody dying, and then having that wave of love, not understanding it, but it has come back to me a few times. And then some time back, I had a friend, and his mom was dying, and he was calling me up about it. And as I was listening to him, what kept coming back to me was, at one point he said, "She's still conscious," he said. And that to me was like, I was like, oh, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he said she's still conscious. So he was very worried about her and about the pain she was going through and the experience that she was having. And then at one point he said, "She's still conscious," where he just meant that she's still there. But to me, as he said that, it was this wave of relief, and it was this understanding like, oh, right, she's still consciousness or whatever you want to call it. And it was like, to me, that was the answer, right? Like that was the relief, and also for him. But I'd never shared it with him because I felt so odd to then say such a thing to somebody, you know. And I never did share it with him as a result, where the weeks went by and he kept, you know, worrying about his mom and feeling bad about her experience. And I bit my tongue. I never shared with him, you know, what I understood about that. And I was just curious if you guys had anything to say about that, because it's so out of the ordinary to say that to somebody, right? But still, it could have well been a relief for him, or at least it could have been helpful in some way. And as a result of not sharing it, I had to listen to him being in pain for weeks on end, you know? Yeah.
It might have scared the hell out of him. You never know what's going to happen with people. I think that as you do share, you find the inspiration to share. It's not always a time to share. There's some things it's not a good idea for you to talk about. And so you kind of learn as you go along. It's like, I think I better keep my mouth closed about this. And so I have just as much respect for that as I do for having the willingness to be inspired to share. So you never know. And what's true for him to do and me to do are many times different things. So I don't have any judgment about how anybody else does or doesn't do it.
I think your and Velda's story too about the connection with her dad after death is pertains, you know, to the truth that your friend experienced. Like, for example, too, when my mom died, I kept thinking about her body. I saw her body after she had passed, and she'd really gone through a difficult passing. You know, it was very, very upsetting to her and frightening to her and a negative to her. And
she was in a lot of pain.
She was in a lot of pain, and so I kept thinking of her dead body, you know. But when I went to see her dead body, there was something else there in the room that wasn't. It was, you know, what I realized, it was her spirit or something. There was something there. It wasn't in her body she wasn't in her body, but she was still there. And it's that consciousness. And so that identity is again, it's a constant. Consciousness, mind, thought doesn't change. And so it's always here and always must be here, because it's divine consciousness, divine thought, divine mind. And so I am and furthermore, with your example, Nikki, of what your friend went through, in my mind, it pertains to this kind of different reality we can live in. It's seemingly split, wherein we have personal pain and experience, and then we have impersonal divine forgiveness and release. And I think that's very typical of the human experience. It's a mixed paradigm. We don't really integrate the two together to realize it's one. It's not a split. It's one. There's one nature to nature, and one consciousness and one mind and one thought, and that incorporates both, but it does eliminate the personal as being all that's going on. So when he would see and say that she was conscious, he was seeing that, but integrating it and seeing that there's one paradigm, one principle, one mind, one consciousness, one thought. That really does something for human beings. And it brings, you realize, as Sid said, the principle of thought allows us to recognize. So we don't create it. It allows us to recognize the inseparability of the spiritual and the physical. And we all have that thought. We have the power of thought, and that power allows. And Sid said, people keep asking me about, why do I talk so much about the principle of thought? And he said, because I know that's how I found it. I found the truth via the principle of thought. The principle of thought illuminated me to the inseparability between the physical and the spiritual. And I can't quit talking about it. I love Gil. I love you, Gil. Like you're always on that couch, and there's just something about your whole thing. I don't know, your attitude and what have you. Just
I've been on the couch a lot more lately too. So this is of course, a very relevant, very timely discussion. Since we're reminded of death so much every day now. In fact, there's numbers on the news every day how high it's getting, and my understanding that principles have been invaluable during this time of the virus, and yet it's a challenge. And I mean, for me personally, because I can do pretty well when I get that I'm doing outside in thinking about particular aspects, like not working, like not having an income. And then at times I just get overwhelmed, I guess, with the breadth of the difficulty of the outside in, that it touches so many aspects of my life personally, of my family's life. And so I just would be interested if you could say a few things about how, maybe even how you're dealing with it, and yeah, just your views on what's going on now with the. Mm-hmm. One thing that's interesting is just how universal this difficult. I mean, it's worldwide now, so it's pretty much everybody's kind of dealing with it on some level. So, so anyway, how are you guys getting along?
So well, good.
Yeah.
Actually, I really like Keith. I love being with him. So, and if I hadn't have been with him whenever the quarantine started, I would have gone and found him and said, I'm willing to take the chance. And maybe you'll get me sick, but I want to hang with you during this. And I also realize that we have so many wonderful friends all over the world that we've spent a lot of time on Zoom talking to friends.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of them calling from, I don't know, 30 years ago and stuff like that. And it's just been great to touch base with them.
I can appreciate that. Friends that I haven't spoken with in years. Yeah, that it's drawn us together for some, just to see how we're doing. Yeah, so.
Us too. Us too.
Even in like a town hall meeting. Oh, like this, you know, a gathering of friends.
Yeah.
I think too, you know, I mean, if we take a too limited view, I mean, if you you know, they'll say take a 30,000 foot view. If you got away, you'd realize, well, I mean, how many other deaths were there today due to accidents and old age and you know, that sort of thing, you know, that, and I'm not at all in any way demeaning or dismissing coronavirus deaths, because those are those are tragedies in the human experience, but in the larger view, they are there's this, you know, this beyond time, space, and matter experience of life that is timeless and not about me. It's about something. It's about what people would call God, or divine, the divine wholeness, or the divine, unbelievable, inconceivable intelligence and consciousness and mind. So I think for people in the principles community, as I am assessing and realizing, they have a great deal of peace, and have had peace before the coronavirus and have it still. Even those that might have caught the virus still have found their peace. So they so there's that, you know, and I think that helps to find a feeling of I just going back to one thing that Sid thought after he found these principles, after he knew that, after he found where everybody's truth is the same, he thought, well, who do I tell? And he thought, well, I'm nobody. I'm just a welder, and maybe, and he lived on a little island that was 5 miles by 15 miles, and so he thought, well, there were 2 churches on the island. He thought, oh, I'll tell the pastors. The pastors would have a bishop, and the bishop would have an archbishop, and the archbishop would have a cardinal, and the cardinal would have a pope, or whatever. You know, there would be some line of authority, and I could just tell one and they would pass it on. And Sid thought, well, how long would it take to spread the word? You know, and he thought, well, 6 weeks, probably maybe 6 weeks. You know, people will tell people. It would be the contagion of today. You know, people would communicate with one another, and they would all, and in 6 weeks there would be peace on earth. I mean, it would be, no doubt, everyone would just, the wars would stop, the fighting would stop, the bitterness, the anger, the racism, all the ills of human ignorance would be over, because there would be no more separate. The separation, the illusion of separation would disappear, and there would be great truth would encompass the earth, and in this truth everyone would find their true nature, and they would find their own place. Everyone would shelter in place, really. Everyone would shelter in place, right? That we say that, but I mean, everyone.
We have a place to shelter. So.
Yeah. Everyone would find that they're already there. They didn't have to go anywhere. There was no pilgrimage to make to find some holy spot. The holy spot is everywhere you actually are right now. It's all a sacred spot. We're already there. And that's what it puzzled him when people would come to visit him, because they were searching, and he could tell that they had agendas, and they would leave, and he would say, well, where are you going? Why would you leave? Well, and he could see that they didn't find, he said they were so close to finding what they already had, but they thought it was something else. So it was their ideas of something else, the matter, something else that was amiss, something else that was, I still haven't found what I'm searching for, and he said, no, you're just not realizing you're already there. And so he never needed to travel anywhere else or to go visit other people or what. I mean, not as a need to find something, because he found it. And so the beyond time, space, and matter. That's so. I think the research will show. I know that there's some people doing research on the principles community, and I think by and large, I think you're going to find that they're peaceful. They're not suffering the stress and strain and of their even income loss or social relationships. I think all those will be are seen by people who understand the principles as being not the determinant of their feeling, not the outside in has no legitimacy to them to determine their experience of life.
And I would have to say that we're still able to work because we work over Zoom most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not missing income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how I would be thinking about that.
Well, we have missed some income, actually.
Well, I know. Not people whose income just went down.
Right.
Gone.
But if you really look, you'll see that people will because of the principles, people are resilient.
Yeah.
Not because of their personality or their philosophy or their upbringing or their DNA or their male or female. Resilience is a testament to the fact that we live in the feeling of our thinking. We don't live in the feeling of the world and the circumstances. That's actually the way our actual realities are being created. And that's why everybody is, throughout all the ages, there's always been resilience because of the principles and how that works. And
I guess I guess we don't have to apply it to each one of the thoughts, like income, like relationships. I mean, it's just there in a very general, again, universal way. It applies across the board.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's why, I mean, just with our little way of talking about the principles as a paradigm, we'll say, put it on both sides of the line. That's that, you know, in the coaching we do and the helping people, we use this diagram and we'll say, okay, loss of income. You put the same thing on both sides of the line, and you look at it, you realize that's not, it doesn't really work, that those circumstances determine my experience. The experience is never a total of what has happened to me. It's always, there's something more, because I'm not you can't just sum up people by charting what has happened to them, ever. Because, and resilience is a word we've used to attest to the divine dream of life. It is a divine dream. And because of that, resilience is forever. You can't reduce people to their situations and circumstances. So that old psychology, that old rap, that old adversity creates that adversity can create experiences, is now dead.
I have a comment, or unless, and I don't want to get, well, years and years ago, Keith recommended a book to me, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was written by a professor at Kennedy University, I think a philosophy professor, and he was basically saying, there's no place where you can draw a line where consciousness does not exist in the universe. And I've been thinking about how not only as individual people, when we are in our personal thinking, we're separate. There's a sense of being separate from the whole. And it seems to me as well that as human beings, as a group, a species, we have also separated ourselves from the rest, the rest of the universe. And I've found, I've had some interesting thoughts as a result of the pandemic, partly because I've found myself saying to people, well, you know, really, viruses and bacteria are just as smart, or maybe smarter than human beings, you know? But I mean, really, I mean, I'm saying that sort of jokingly, except that consciousness doesn't end anywhere, I think, is what I'm starting to see. And what's interesting to me is to observe what's happening in the world, for instance, in our environment, as human beings have sort of been forced to draw back and stop being such consumers in a sense, you know, so that, you know, I don't know if this is true, but you hear stories, for instance, that the ozone is repairing itself. Well, that's resiliency in my mind. That's a part of the whole. Or, you know, the dolphins are coming back into the canals in Venice, and animals are kind of regaining their place in nature. And I just think it's you know, stepping back and taking, one of the things the principles allow us to do is to step back and take a bigger and bigger view, not only in terms of who we are as an individual person, but who we are as a species. I don't know. These are just thoughts that have been going through my mind as we've been experiencing this particular episode.
Is that Chris there with you?
Yes, it is. Chris and I are here, and we're in my art studio. She's helping me move from one studio into another little space.
Good to see you both.
Yeah. Hi, Chrissy.
Yeah, and this is the bonus. The bonus is we get to be with all of you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Mother's Day bonus.
Right.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, there's a lot of warmth on this call. It's really nice, actually. It's just nice to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is sort of, I've come across the principles from a place of wanting desperately to get out of a health situation that kind of has turned my life upside down for a number of years. And I guess prior to this, have tried every tool that exists. I've given it a go. If a tool could have got me out of this, it would have done so by now. I think what really resonated with me about the principles was that it wasn't a doing, that it was something that I didn't have to do. But I guess my question is sort of, my mind is quite reluctant to give up doing, I guess. So it still is kind of engaging with the principles from a place of doing. And it feels like that's what's holding me back from moving from a sort of head intellectual understanding of it to a place of sort of knowing it at a deeper level where it could really help my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, my question is sort of how to engage with principles, not from a place of doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Other people may have something to say about this too, but I think that, I mean, you're already tracking what the answer to the principles pertains to, is that it's not a human, it's not self-created. The principles of thought, mind, and consciousness they're not about doing. And that is the one thing that has stood out to me too, Joe. When I ran across this, I thought, I could tell Sid was talking about a paradigm, or he was talking about a not, if you will, a not doing paradigm, a not human doing principle. And he was sharing from some other place. Every other person I'd ever heard or listened to, they always had doing in there. You know, like there would always be something to pray for or to do, or to, there would be something, there was doing in every single one of them. And Sid was the first non-doing person I ever really met. And furthermore, he was insistent on the fact that it wasn't a doing. So he drew the line there, you know, and it was really like, it really helped me, because in my philosophy and in my psychology, doing with, you know, techniques and processes and methods, and they were built in. It was, of course, you know. And he said the ego, it's the ego that wants to do, you know, that, you know, and the doing, and the ego, he diagnosed it well. He said the whole world is infested with doing and egotism. And he said that's in the old psychology. And this new reality, this separate reality, that that is true is not relegated to that egotism. And so you're tracking the right, you're in the right group. Uh, uh, welcome, welcome. And and I think the weaning off of that mentality of doing, of figuring it out, or of egotism, really, and so, finding a place of peace or surrender or going beyond doing is a real, there's something really, really, really valuable and important in this community, and in this understanding that will continue to speak to you. I believe, you hang in there, and you'll find that temptation. It's a lot less tempting to believe in it once you see that it's not about that. And then you start to see what it is about, and it's you're going beyond your egotism when that's happening, and that's what the principles really chart for humanity, is an existence beyond the ego. The ego is the individualized little truth that we argue with each other about.
Yeah.
And so
it puts up one hell of a fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a yeah, because it knows in the back of its mind, I think, that it's
under
not
threat.
really, yeah. It's a mortal. There's a mortality to it, which there is, because it doesn't exist. It's just a figment of our imagination, but it holds us captive in such a gripping way that it's and so when we work with people, or we work with corporations or that kind of thing, oftentimes they're in the grip of doing. They want to know. Velda has said before, when she met Sid, she thought, well, couldn't you just give me something to do? Like, couldn't you just give me a piece, and he, of course, refused, because he knew that was futile, absolutely, totally futile. And he was dead certain about that. And that not doing thing will really help you again and again and again and again, because it's tempting, but it's not true. That it's principles are not doing. They are constant. There's no exceptions, and it's already done. It's already been done. It was here before you got here, Joe, and it'll be, as a person, and it'll be here after you're gone as a person. So it's not, that's the identity of truth. It isn't, is where we're all the same. Wow. I mean, that's a real place to find now, here, with yourself and with everyone.
And I think you just have to find your own way. I think that was the hardest thing of all for me, was that the not doing. I just, it just killed me. I thought, just let me do a little something, please. Because I knew how to do. I came from a doing family, and we talked about it all the time, and we were well respected, and on and on and on. And then he's telling me there's nothing to do. And I thought, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, what am I supposed to do with nothing to do?
Yeah, and he just wouldn't, I would take him aside and say, no, come on, Sid, tell me, and he wouldn't do it. He couldn't. It would be saying a lie to him. But it is the it's just an enormous thing. And you find out all the havoc that your own ego is creating in your life. Just you're not being able to love people as much as you could, or be as kind and nice as you could, things that anybody would want. Everybody does want, but they don't realize that their own ego's the thing that's in their way. And so I just appreciate Sid so much for hanging in there, telling us again and again and again in a million different ways, so that we could, and I just started little by little. I thought, okay, I don't know if this is right or not, you know, what he's saying. And I thought, I'm going to try it on some small stuff. I'm not a particularly high-minded person, but the 3 principles has helped me a lot. But I thought, I'll try it on some small, insignificant stuff. That's what I'll do. And what I mostly did was that I would hang in there till I had some insight about it. Because I'm really good about thinking up creative ways to get around things, and, you know, how to deal with things, dreaming up analytically all the ideas, and just a wealth of stuff there. So I had always been able to get by on that really well and be patted on the back for it a lot. And now I'm being asked to let go of it. And I just did it little by little, and I thought, well, my golly, that was right. And then I'd try another little one that wasn't an earth-shaking one, you know. It wasn't going to be the end of my world as I knew it, one way or the other. And so I just tried it on the smaller things. And it just kept proving itself to be right. And I started getting more used to insight instead of analytical, whatever. And so I became, you know, I thought, well, this insight's like way smarter than the analytical stuff. You know, there was that. I was coming up with ideas like I'd never seen anybody have some of the time. I thought, I've never even heard of anybody ever doing this, you know? And so I think it has it built into it that it's going to keep on keeping you encouraged and inspired to keep coming this way, keep on coming this way. It did just enough to keep me, because I was like 24 when I met Sid. And so I was young, and I was, once again, I was an immature 24. And, but it just was enough to keep me coming and keep me trying. And I thought, boy, and I realized that I'd been insightful a lot in my life, and that I had been raised by an insightful mother, which really helped me understand a lot more about her than what I ever had before. I was confused about a lot of the things that she did, and I thought, because she'd tell us, now don't you ever do this, 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 and this, and then a situation would happen, and she would do the more loving, kind thing that she never told us about, you know? So I'm like, who am I supposed to listen to here? I don't know which one of you to listen to, but I realized she was going on insight more than she was on her analytical figuring out. And which was very heartening to me to find that out about her, because I was just confused about her pretty much. So how old are you, may I ask you?
Yeah, I'm 25.
Oh, I was going to say 24. Oh, aren't you?
That's close enough.
Yeah. Aren't you fortunate to be interested in this young? That's great.
Yeah, no matter how many times I sort of stray away, something keeps pulling me back to this every single time. It's the only thing that keeps getting pulled back to. So
yeah, him too.
Here I am. I'm still in with the fight.
Yeah. That's how we were too. That's how a lot of people were. They said, you know, I was just losing interest, and then this happened, and man, I'm there again, you know. So that's great.
I think that's one of the real reasons why having this group is, I see we're near the end of our time, but having this group and throwing the doors open and having so many old friends and new friends and bring their new friends along, etc., is really the spirit of what we want to share here, because it's not about us. It's about how life works, and so we're pleased to be here with you, and thank you all for your questions and your listening. I can see all your faces. It's been a pleasure to reconnect with you, and I hope we can do it. We can do it again soon.
Joe, what's your last name?
My last name's Gilby.
Gilby. Okay. I thought I might hear your name some other place. Do we have anybody else? Do we have one more question, Brett?
Thank you guys.
Yes, we
Anyway,
do.
thank you for the answer.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, we have one from Bob and Marty.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I did have a question earlier, in fact, two, but they were already covered, which I think shows the unity of the minds that come together to share truth and hear truth.
Mhm.
And I just am so grateful to Sid and you, who knew him, to hear more about him and more about your experiences. And it's just a beautiful thing to witness.
It really is.
How it proves we're one mind, we are connected, how things come up and they're covered, whether I ask the question or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Many questions, one answer. So that,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for doing this. This is always
Yeah.
great.
Great.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Bob. It's nice to have you.
We look forward to it.
Yeah. And
We
thank
do
you.
too.
Thank you all.
What was the title of the tape from Sid that you were talking about?
Well, it wasn't, that particular quote was on a tape that wasn't, or a recording that was made that was not published. So it's a private recording. It's just a little comment that he made that the original mind is where everyone's truth is the same. And so it's not, you can't find it anywhere because it's in my kind of private collection, you might say. And so
Thank you very much for sharing it. That was wonderful.
yeah, I really like that. I really like that. It spoke to me deeply.
I call them the basement tapes.
Yeah, like the Beatles in Germany before,
Before they were the Beatles.
It was an underground recording, so. Well, thank you all so much. And we'll see you, hopefully down the road, we'll reconnect again. God bless everybody.
Yeah. Is Svi still on there?
Yeah.
Where is he? No, I think he's gone.
Yeah.
I need to
Happy anniversary.
Oh,
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Thank you. And happy Mother's Day to everyone too.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day.
Everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.